Hello and welcome, dear friends, to this latest episode where we analyze the crypto market and try to find out what Bitcoin and the altcoins are going to do. So let's get started right away. As always, we will start with our long-term Bitcoin chart and our curved long-term logarithmic trend channel. So what do we have here if we just look at the candles? This doesn't look 100% awesome. What is that here? This is a so-called shooting star candle, okay? Let's have a look what it is. Shooting star candle. So a shooting star candle is not so awesome because usually it is a reversal candle. All those pictures here on Google search, they will show you plenty of examples of different shooting star candles. So a shooting star candle, this here is a good example. It's like a price goes up extremely, but gets rejected and closes only slightly above or below the starting price, okay? That's a shooting star candle. And if we get a shooting star candles in Bitcoin, that normally is not an awesome sign. So where did we have shooting star candles in the past? Well, let's search for a few shooting star candles in the weekly chart in the past of Bitcoin. Well, we can see we had here a shooting star candle in August 2020, and what happened? We had dumps afterwards. But here is a really beautiful example of a shooting star candle. In June 2019, we had an extreme shooting star candle, this one here, okay? This shooting star candle is absolutely insane. I mean, this is a textbook example of a shooting star candle. So what happened? We had the rally from early 2019 until June 2019, where we pumped from around 3,100 up to 13,800. Okay, this was a massive pump. And what happened? We got this shooting star candle, and a shooting star candle is rarely a good sign. So what happened afterwards? We started a long and brutal decline that culminated in the Corona crash, right? Of course, this doesn't really count, but even before the Corona crash, we were in a downtrend. Another quite beautiful example of a shooting star candle we see in November 2014. In November 2014, we had this beautiful example here of a shooting star candle. BTC pretended that it will pump from 300 something up to 462, was pretending to be bullish, and then we dumped all the way down to 152. Oh, and please subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest Bitcoin and altcoin and crypto analysis in general. Thank you very much. So we can see that the shooting star candle is really not the best candle and is normally not our friend. And a shooting star candle that goes high upwards normally indicates a bearish reversal. So then does this mean now that BTC is going to dump and drag the whole altcoin market with it? Well, not necessarily, because this depends again on our good old friend the dollar and also on the stock market, because we found that Bitcoin is inversely correlated to the dollar and positively correlated to the stock market. So what is the dollar doing? Well, the dollar is unfortunately pumping. So here we see the RSI, the relative strength index of the dollar, and here we have the stochastic RSI. This is the daily chart, and we see that the dollar is doing a huge megaphone structure since June this year, okay? Since June this year, it is in this insanely gigantic megaphone structure, and I assume that we will now pump a bit because we have a very oversold structure here in the stochastic RSI, okay? Normally, when the stochastic RSI is on zero, as was the case the last time in early September, normally then the dollar pumps, right? So the dollar was pumping last time from 92.1 to 94.45. And with dollar, I mean the dollar index DXY. This is the strength of the dollar against the most important world currencies. So I assume now that because the stochastic RSI is oversold, that we will now pump a bit until the stochastic RSI in the dollar goes up again, and then we can prepare for the next dump. Why do I think that the dollar will still dump? Well, I think the dollar will dump because we are making this huge bearish divergence in the RSI. Okay, the RSI, the relative strength index, is really good for spotting bearish divergences. So the price is going upwards, we have higher highs, but the RSI is not making higher highs, okay? It is staying constant with a slight downtrend. Also, as I said many times in the last videos, the long-term dollar chart looks pretty bearish. We have a huge bearish divergence in the monthly chart. So I think the dollar long-term will go down. However, there could be an intermediary pump. We don't know how high it will pump, but if the pump turns out to be stronger than expected, of course, this will have implication for Bitcoin and the altcoin market. If the dollar now, by some sheer wild miracle, would go through and break through this megaphone structure and go to 97, 98, then this of course would be very bearish for Bitcoin. So the future moves of Bitcoin, and if this shooting star candle is really very bearish, will depend of course a lot on what the dollar will be doing. So if we are lucky, we just get a small pump here of the dollar, and then the dollar resumes the downtrend and goes to much lower values. So if this would be the case, I think that this shooting star candle will just mean that we go sideways with a slight tendency downwards, slight tendency downwards, and then at some point in a few weeks we will resume the rally when the dollar starts dumping again. However, should now some weird stuff happen and the dollar starts pumping like crazy, then this of course will have bearish implications for Bitcoin, and then I assume that Bitcoin will retest the middle Bollinger Band again. Because the weekly Bollinger Band is still quite low, as we can see here. It's at 45,000, okay? And we just pumped now for 4 or 5 weeks straight without any major corrections. So it could really happen that we retest the middle Bollinger Band. So we would dump to the $49,000 range and then continue upwards, okay? So this would be an intermediary dump. We are starting to get overbought in the stochastic RSI on Bitcoin. However, we know that the weekly stochastic RSI is not a really good indicator to tell you when Bitcoin is going to dump, because it can stay overbought massively, as we saw here, for example, for extremely long periods of time, where, for example, it stayed completely overbought from late October 2020 until mid-January 2021, so for almost 3 months. The daily chart, however, looks pretty good. We can see that the daily stochastic RSI is now on oversold. It has come down all the way from overbought levels. In the last video I said that this here does not look too good and that we shouldn't be surprised if we see a 10, 15, even 20% BTC dump, okay? We shouldn't be surprised about that because the daily stochastic RSI was overbought for an entire month, which is quite a long time for Bitcoin. So it was clear that we needed to cool off here. So now we are again down, we are on oversold levels, and what will happen now? Well, this will, as I said, depend strongly on the dollar index, but the picture here is looking not so bad because we are in an uptrend, and here the RSI is also slightly rising, so we don't have a bearish divergence, okay? We don't need to be afraid, there's no bearish divergence now in the daily chart, which is already a good sign. So what will happen now? It's 50-50, okay? It depends how much will the dollar pump now. But we should not be surprised if something like this here would happen, right? If we retrace down to the middle weekly Bollinger Band, then maybe go sideways a bit and then start the next leg upwards to around $100,000. This would of course then be longer than we anticipate. The whole rally would need longer than we think. And then we basically would resume the rally in late November or early December. So we would now need to cool off because remember, we now pumped really straight for 5 weeks down from 14,900 to 67,000, okay? So this is quite the pump without pause. So it wouldn't be such an unrealistic scenario to say that we now need to cool off a bit, go back to the middle Bollinger Band area and then continue the pump, right? And then we said many times that how high will it go? Well, it depends on your optimism level. We will get certainly another retrace and then we might hit the all-time high if this model stands correct here in March at around 160,000. But also we said in the last video that we could even go as high as 300,000 in the best case scenario. If we take the full Fibonacci extension that we can see here now as a basis, let me deactivate the Bollinger Bands and this trend channel. So the full Fibonacci extension is at 290,000 plus minus, okay? So this means we could retrace now a bit back to the 50,000, low 50,000s, high 40,000s, which also corresponds to the 0.702 Fibonacci retracement level, which is also the area for the middle Bollinger Band. And then we could continue our rally and probably would get many retracements on the way up, and the final peak in March, April 2022 around that area at around 300,000. So this means for us now that there's a certain probability that we will see intermediary dumps, but even if that happens, we should not be sad, because the bull market is certainly very strong and very healthy, and we will continue upwards of 100,000, maybe even to as high as $300,000 for Bitcoin. And this in turn means for the altcoins that there might be an altcoin correction in the near term. And you know that if Bitcoin corrects, the altcoins normally correct even more brutally than Bitcoin. That's clear, right? But it could also be that we are now being surprised that the dollar will be dumping, and this in turn would mean that Bitcoin will continue pumping. And if Bitcoin continues pumping, what does that in turn mean? All altcoins will be pumping, you know. Ethereum will be pumping, Binance Coin, Cardano, Solana, XRP, Polkadot, Dogecoin, they will all be pumping, okay? They will all be pumping, not at the same time, because we said they don't pump at the same time. There's always a delay between the pumps, but they will all be pumping anyways. So dear friends, that's already it for today. I hope I could show you that basically the shooting star candle is an ambiguous signal. It could happen that we will now go sideways or down-ish. Depends strongly on the dollar, so don't be surprised if we go down now to the 50,000 or high 40,000 area. The bull market is still extremely strong and extremely intact, even if that should happen. But maybe Bitcoin will surprise us and will continue pumping. It's not out of the question if the dollar starts dumping now. So then friends, have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video.